Oh, you damn right. Hope everybody's having a good Wednesday. It's recruiting hour time. We are 3 days away from the Texas spring game. There's some recruits that are going to be coming in. We've been telling you about that for a while. Specifically, that guy, Jason Sukamel, has been telling you about it for a while now. Our man Jeff Ketchum is taking care of some OB business today. I'm Chad Hastings. That is Jason Sukamel, managing editor of OrangeBloods.com. 3 days from the spring game. Jason, are you ready?
No, but I'll be ready by Saturday. The game's at 1. I'll be out there a couple hours early, so I'll be ready by Saturday. So
I bet Sark would tell you the same thing. I'm not ready right now, Chad. I'm not ready now. We'll be ready then for practice number 15, right? Practice 15 is when they'll be ready. We'll tell you a little bit later about some of the recruits that have mentioned the fact that they're going to try to visit for the spring game. Let's go ahead and tell you about a different kind of visitor. If you didn't catch it earlier today, this dude we've been talking about, Big Bill Norton, still sounds like somebody Johnny Cash would sing a song about back in the day. Bill Norton from Arizona, apparently he's going to be visiting for the spring game. So keep that name in mind. Obviously, he would have played for Johnny Nansen last year as his DC in Arizona. He will be in town for the spring game. So that's something to keep an eye on. Also, Jason, for those folks that have not kept an eye on it, over at orangebloods.com this week, you have got another 3-2-1 article out there. Let's throw up a little code for you. There's how you do it if you've always wanted to sign up with orangebloods.com, but you've just been waiting for me to tell you. Do it right now. That's your QR code. Get to orangebloods.com. The 3-2-1 article is out there from Jason Sukamel. And Jason, maybe not to start at the end or anything, but future cast about to go in for Texas on a name that I'm not sure if everybody knows. I'll admit I hadn't heard it, but it's a name you would tell us we need to know.
You know what? I may do that while we're on the show, put my future cast pick in. And before I start talking about Caleb Chester as the recruit you're talking about, I got to admit, Chad, I cheated a little bit this week because usually I alternate my 3-2-1 one week, and then the next week I do a recruiting Q&A, 3-2-1 Q&A. Well, I did a 3-2-1 last week, and I did one again this week. The reason I had so many damn interviews that I did like down on campus on Saturday, I was like, I got to find a way to unload some of these things. So I transcribed, and I still got a bunch more, frankly, that I need to transcribe. So back-to-back weeks for a 3-2-1, which is not the norm. But yes, Caleb Chester, I led with Caleb. And ironically, Caleb was one of the recruits who visited Texas last Saturday. Okay, there was a handful of them. He was a guy that I did not interview down. I went down on campus and I interviewed guys as they're leaving their visits. Well, Caleb was a guy I didn't get to interview because he left pretty late. Well, he and I had been kind of DMing each other, and I just said, hey, don't worry about it. I'll catch up with you during the week. So I ended up calling Caleb on Monday night. And the reason you haven't heard a lot about him, we didn't have a phone number for him until I got one this week. So I hadn't really reported a whole lot on him. But so I got a chance to really connect with him on Monday. And first off, awesome dude, really, really good kid, fun guy to talk to. But he came up on Saturday with his parents, loved the visit, just raved about it and said, just the attention from the staff members. He said throughout the whole day, he went to practice, went to position meetings, toured the campus. Everywhere he went, Terry Joseph or another coach was basically attached to his hip. So he had he sat down with Sark. So that tells you right there, hey, this is a priority target that Texas is really, pushing for. They told him he is their number one cornerback on their board. Is he one tied with three others? I don't know. But they did tell him, hey, you're the number one cornerback on our board. Caleb just on Friday of last week dropped a top 5. I've got it here. It's TCU, LSU, Texas, Texas A&M, and Arkansas. He's going to take official visits to all 5 of those schools. Okay, he told me he's pretty open among all 5 of them. My gut, Chad, tells me it's probably Texas and Texas A&M out in front right now. And the reason I'm going to put a future cast in for Texas over Texas A&M comes down to one thing. I mean, I think he had a great visit. He really likes the coaches, but ultimately he told me academics are going to be big for him. That led me to ask him, do you know what you want to study already? He said, yes, I want to study business. I said, okay. Have they talked to you about the Macomb School of Business? Obviously one of the best in the country. He said, yeah, absolutely. They have showed him that and talked to him all about it. So if he's true that about academics being important, and if he really wants to study business, where better and I'm sure A&M's got a good business program too. I don't know, but I know the McCombs, is arguably one of the best in the country. Where better to go play football at Texas, study business at the McComb School of Business. So I think this one looks really good for Texas. Big, long, lengthy corner with really good cover skills and can do a lot of things in the defensive backfield.
You think coaches listen for that word any way they can get it in there? Yeah, I'm thinking of starting my own painting business. Business? Did you say business? Because business, yeah, I would do that.
I don't want to tell Caleb. I hear a lot of guys say they want to study business, and getting into the Macomb School of Business is no easy feat. Okay,
right.
I think Hudson Card was able to do it, but there are a lot of guys who want to do it, and then they look at it and say, "Oh my gosh, it's like the number 2 ranked business program in the country, or whatever it is right now." I don't even know, but getting in, boy, it's not always easy. So, but it's a great selling point. I mean, it's a great selling point. Anytime a guy like Caleb Chester wants to study business, boy, we're better than the University of Texas.
Yeah. By the way, before we go any further, we do have somebody looking in on us today in the chat. It says from Spaniard Prince, "Go Blue." Here, keeping eyes on the enemy. You know what, Prince? Welcome in. Enjoy the show. In exchange, all we need you to do is if one of those big defensive linemen at Michigan decides they're going to maybe head towards the portal, if you could just pass Kenny Baker's name on to him. That's all that Texas fans would ask of you.
Just tell them how nice the media are down here and all that stuff.
Yeah, right. Exactly. We also got a hook 'em emoji in from Brandon. We're glad everybody's there in the Specs chat. So Caleb Chester, you just mentioned, Jason, that he is a longer corner. I love the corners and safeties when they get up over 6 feet, when they can move really well, just that long reach and everything. 6'2", 175 is how I see him listed here. Fort Bend Marshall, if we didn't say that. So as of right now, I see him listed as a 3-star. Do you think that is going to change as we roll through the process here?
I think it should, honestly. I mean, I don't really get into the rankings too much. I certainly don't have a hand in the rankings. I'll let the regional analysts do that. I mean, it's very rare that I'll hit them up and say, "Hey, dude, this guy's underranked. This guy's overranked." But I mean, I do every once in a while from time to time. But Caleb's a guy, dude. His offer list. I mean, LSU, Texas, Texas A&M, Arkansas, TCU are all after him aggressively. He's got size at 6'2". You watch his film, and I asked him. I said, "Hey, what do you feel like your strengths are?" And it's true. If you look at his film, he's tall, but he can really turn his hips and move. A lot of those bigger guys, maybe it takes them a little bit longer to kind of get going, but he can really turn and run. And I don't have the notes in front of me, but he told me his weight room numbers are surprisingly high. He's a lot stronger than you would think when you hear 6'2", 170. You're like, okay, he's tall and skinny. No, he's pretty strong too in the weight room, just natural strength. So he said, "Hey, if I get my hands on you, it's over." And I was like, okay. So I do think. I think he's got a legitimate case to bump up to 4 stars. I would love to have seen him like at an Under Armour camp, or the Rivals camp is coming up, not this weekend, but next weekend. Unfortunately, he hasn't hit the camp circuit, so we haven't had a chance to, people haven't had a chance to evaluate him much this spring. But if he has a good senior season, certainly I think he has a chance to move up in that 4-star realm, and I think he probably should, honestly.
And it just tells you the interest level when you're talking about the coaches paying so much attention to him, multiple coaches, time with Sark and all that kind of stuff. Caleb Chester, a name to keep your eye on. And as Jason mentioned, those 5 schools, and in that order, he's listed the official visits. Jason, correct me when I'm wrong here. TCU on May 3rd, LSU the 31st of May, Texas on the 6th or 7th of June, A&M the next weekend on the 14th. Arkansas will get the last say of the 5, if you believe in that stuff, June 21st.
Yeah, and then he does want to commit probably in July, maybe August. He wants to have it out of the way before his senior season. So those visits are going to be big. And going back to the academic thing, I flat out asked him, I said, "Hey, I said, how much does that help Texas?" And his direct quote, the Macomb School of Business and their reputation, his direct quote, "A lot. It really gives them an edge." So, I know he's going to take all 5 visits. They're all going to have a chance. There could be some back and forth movement here, but I really do like Texas's position in this one right now.
And Caleb was a guy, he was one of the guys that would have been in last weekend. Is that true? Or?
He was in last weekend on Saturday. Yeah, there was a lot of underclassmen in last weekend, but there were a handful, like 3 guys maybe from the 2025 group that had offers, him and Keati Armstrong, Jackson Christian, an offensive lineman, we'll talk about. So he was one of the guys that came in last weekend instead of the April 6th weekend.
Gotcha. Before we talk about Jackson Christian, there is a super chat. We always say they go to the top of the pile, even if they're not necessarily in a good mood. William for $5 says, man, baseball sucks, but I'll take it if football is going to be in the playoffs yearly. Did I mention baseball is awful, but only 2 games out of first? Yeah, William, they are winning those series in conference. And if you go to the standings, they're still at the upper middle part of those standings.
Shocking. Yeah.
There's only 3 teams ahead of them. There's only the Oklahoma schools and West Virginia. But Jason, there are some losses that you cannot ignore. And Rio Grande Valley beats them 17-9. Yeah. I hadn't even thought to look it up, but then I see a headline. The last time Rio Grande Valley beat Texas in baseball, 1971.
Wow. Yeah,
I had not been born.
I'm old and I wasn't even alive then. So.
I wasn't born yet, right? I had not been born. That's crazy. So, yeah, they're 22-16 overall, 9-6 in conference. So, William,
David Pierce,
rough.
I got to think if things don't get turned around really quickly, this might be the beginning of the end for David Pierce.
And I think he knows it too. I mean, I watched an interview with him on the field after last night, and he said, look, this is on me. Ultimately, it is on me. He knows it on 2 levels, Jason. Obviously, he's the coach, but he's also now made himself the pitching coach.
Yes.
And the pitching's been awful at times. So I think he understands it. The writing is on the wall, and he knows if this doesn't turn, it's going to be a long season, and he knows it will be his last. He has to know that.
Yeah. Yeah. I give him credit for owning up to it, but it's got to be almost like a dead man walking feeling at this point. I feel bad for him. So
it is rough. William, thank you for that super chat. Also, Blake jumps in with a happy hook'em afternoon and an emoji. Thank you, Blake. We appreciate it. Hope you're having a good Wednesday. We talked about Caleb Chester, and now let's talk about a big old lineman here, Jason. So Jackson Christian was also in town last weekend, and then maybe a couple of revisits coming for Jackson Christian.
Yeah, he was in town last weekend for sure. I got to interview. He was one of the guys I did interview as they were leaving campus. And he told me during that interview he was coming back this Tuesday, so yesterday. I actually reached out to him, Chad, today to see if that second visit happened. He's not super responsive, Jackson, so I have not heard back yet. Sometimes I may hear back from him like 3 or 4 days later. So I'm assuming that visit happened because he got a lot of time with Kyle Flood on that visit on Saturday. And he said, yes, I will be back on Tuesday. In fact, the reason he was coming back, he said he got to watch practice on Saturday because, man, I really liked watching Coach Flood work. I'm coming back on Tuesday because I want to watch him again. Yeah, that was interesting to me because a couple things with this visit. Okay, he's visited A&M a couple times this spring. He gets up to Austin. He's coming back for a second visit. A lot of times guys coming back for a second visit means, they're coming back to do a commitment video, maybe give a commitment. So
throw on the threads one more time.
Yeah, right. So I kind of was like, okay, this is something worth watching, but he stayed very quiet this week. But he did tell me he's got official visits set up to Texas, Texas A&M, and Texas Tech. He said those 3 schools are standing out, of course, but he said it's probably Texas and Texas A&M that are really standing out. He's a tough kid to read, Jackson. Like I said, he doesn't do a lot of social media. He doesn't do a lot of interviews. I've interviewed him twice, and both times, maybe 3 times, but every time I've interviewed him, it's been in person. You got to get him in person, okay? He doesn't do phone interviews. He doesn't do a lot of social media DMing and stuff like that. But he said, hey, it was a great visit, the one he had on Saturday. He loved the atmosphere of the practice, the fact that it was in the stadium, just the vibe, the atmosphere. He said the way Coach Flood coaches is a big thing. And then I asked him, I said, hey, dude, is the plan for you, when he told me he's coming back on Tuesday, I said, is the plan for you then to take those official visits and then decide? And he's kind of always said, like the times I've talked to him, Chad, he said, I don't know. It might just happen tomorrow. He basically said, I've got all the information that I need at this point. So, I wouldn't say he's on commitment watch necessarily this week, but if 2 trips in a week is something to keep an eye on. But I think ultimately he'll probably take those official visits, but he's a guy that could pop, just wake up one day and be, you know what? I think I'm ready to just put an end to this. I've got all the information I need. I know where I want to go. let's shut it down. So he's a guy we'll be watching closely, certainly the rest of the spring, obviously into the summer if he holds out that long.
Interesting. Sounds like an old Southwest Conference kind of recruiting battle, Texas and A&M and Texas Tech. Now, I would remind Jackson that one of those schools is not in the SEC moving forward.
Yeah.
I don't know if
I'm
you know
sure he's
that.
been reminded. I'm sure.
Jackson, I don't know, Jackson, if anybody in Austin or College Station reminded you of that. But
hey, another note on Jackson, real quickly, Chad. So I'm out there, and these recruits are coming out, and a handful of select guys, they take them out on these golf carts, right? And they drive them around campus and show them campus. So you're like, okay, that guy's important. He's getting the golf cart tour. Jackson Christian comes out on the golf cart. 30 minutes later, comes back in. About 20 minutes, dude, he did a second tour of the campus. So he's like, hey, we got to see the dorms and everything else. So I was like, okay, he really wanted to see this campus a couple times. And while I'm interviewing him, this is pretty late in the day. The day's winding down. The coaches are actually leaving at this point. Kyle Flood cruised by on a golf cart, and he goes, tell him Kyle Flood's the best or something like that. but yeah, he got a lot of personalized attention, got 2 tours of the campus, obviously spent a lot of time with Coach Flood. So, I had put a Texas Futurecast in for Jackson Christian. I still feel okay about that one, but it's tough, man. It's a real tough read between Texas and Texas A&M right now.
So when you need the second tour on the golf cart, is that like calling an Uber? What do? You hail it? I mean, is there an app for that?
Yeah, they had I guess student interns driving them around, but he and his mom was with him. They get on the cart and they just cruise him around. But I don't know what they took him out to see the second time that he didn't see on the first time, but he did 2 tours of the campus for some reason. So
that's very cool. Very cool. All right. So Jackson Christian, and if we didn't say it, Port Neches Groves, a PNG guy.
State champion Port Neches Groves. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Big O lineman, 6'5", 310. I saw him listed specifically, Jason, as a guard. When you see that with an offensive lineman, how much stock do you take into it when it's guard? I know there's some guys like a Kelvin Banks, when they come out of high school, everybody's thinking, yeah, he's a badass tackle. That's just what he's going to be. When it says guard like that, what does it say to you?
Not much, especially with Jackson Christian. Usually, a lot of that's usually built on their frame. DJ Campbell at Texas was obviously going to be a guard, although he's athletic enough. Some people thought he could maybe play tackle. But, Jackson Christian's got more of a tackle frame. I mean, he's 6'5". We've got him at 310. So he's got the long frame. Does he have the athleticism to play tackle? I think he can be a tackle, honestly. But so I wouldn't pigeonhole him at guard necessarily. I think he could probably play inside or out, maybe like at right tackle or something. One more interesting note on Jackson Christian. I don't know if it's still true, but as of about a month ago, he's dating an Orange Blood subscriber's daughter. So there's that note, because sometimes I have to go to this guy and be like, hey, can you find out if Jackson Christian's coming in for a visit? Because I can't get Jackson to respond. So he'll be like, let me ask my daughter, who asks Jackson, tells him, blah, 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 blah. The information gets back to me. So small world sometimes in this recruiting stuff.
So much like we hear from Baron Sorrell's dad a lot here on Orange Bloods Live, we may be hearing from the father of the girlfriend of Jackson Christian if everything goes Texas for him.
You get news wherever you can get it, Chad.
That's it, right? Sources are sources, wherever they come from. So Jackson Christian, a name to keep an eye on there for class of 2025. Speaking of, there's going to be some visitors coming in, just like Jackson did last weekend. Spring game coming up. Who does Jason here is going to be visiting? We will get to that. Right now, let's take a breath and remind you about specs. If you're getting ready for the spring game, you're staying at home, going to be watching it. Maybe you need to get stocked up. Here you go.
You're needing Specs same-day delivery can save the day with our Specs app or online shopping. From world-class wines to hard-to-find spirits and craft beers to gourmet foods, delicious snacks, and spectacular sweets. It's Specs. Cheers to savings.
I don't mention wine enough when we talk about Specs because I'm not a huge wine guy myself. But if you're into wine, oh my God, Specs is unbelievable for wine. So go check it out for that as well. Whatever you're into, drinking the food.
Yeah, dude. There's a Specs right up the road from me, so I'm there frequently, and I go straight to the bourbon aisle. Usually when I'm at Specs, they do have good snacks and everything else. Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of good stuff. Yes, if you meet Jason, it'll be in the bourbon aisle. If you meet me, it's probably in the vodka aisle, and then you can go get whatever you need. All right, Jason. So I'm seeing you sent me a list of guys that you're hearing about that may be visiting this weekend. And I had to ask you before the show if KJ Lacy already has an apartment in Austin. Feels like he visits Austin more than, state senators do.
Yeah, he came in for a camp, and then he went to campus. Then he's coming back. He was there April 6th. Did he end up making it in for that one? I don't even remember. But then he's come back for the spring game. So KJ always has plans to get to Austin. Sometimes those plans fall through a little bit here and there. But as of last check, yeah, he's supposed to be back in town for the spring game. He's been there a ton. Last time I talked to him was about a month ago when he was in for that Elite 11 camp. He did end up going to see Auburn like the following week, so for one of their spring practices. So, but KJ and I talked a bunch. I even asked him at that point. I go, dude, do fans need to calm down every time you take another visit? And he goes, pretty much, dude. He goes, I just get bored. It's fun to go on these visits. It's fun to go watch football games. It's fun to go watch practices. I've got Auburn right there, Alabama. But he was decked out in his UT gear. He had his UT necklace on. He's flashing the hook'em when I'm taking pictures. So I don't think there's anything to be worried about with KJ Lacy. I think he's pretty locked in, but you're just going to have to deal with the fact, Texas Longhorn fans, that this is a dude who loves college football. He's going to probably show up at an Auburn game or two. He may show up when Texas is out in the SEC. He said, I may try to hit some of those games when they're out in the area. So, Texas is going to have to fight. I always say every time you take an out-of-state recruit, especially a high-profile quarterback, you're going to have to recruit them like they're uncommitted. Texas is going to have to fight off some other schools, but I think KJ Lacy and Texas have a good thing going, and they're both pretty happy.
Yeah, been to Texas a few times, but he's also probably recognized on Toomer's Corner as well. So it's just we're gonna have to see how all that goes. But it's definitely been a strong relationship with Texas. KJ Lacy, the quarterback commit in the 25 class, will be there. Speaking of quarterbacks, I see Keelon Russell's name on this list, Jason. We talked about him a little bit before. The quarterback at Duncanville that's been throwing all those passes to DeCorian Moore. For you, we've kind of talked about it before, but in this class for 2025, could you see it being two? And are these the two, Lacy and Russell? Is that what you think where Sark would like that to go?
I still think it's probably going to be one, but this weekend could be key. Now, when I talked to Keelon Russell, it was at that Elite 11 camp, same one as KJ Lacy. They both got invitations to the National Elite 11 camp this summer. So both those guys performed really well at that camp. Texas has been flirting with Keelon Russell for a while. They've been in contact with them. They've talked to him. They haven't offered him yet. So the plan was for him to come down for the spring game, obviously this weekend, and he wants to get a better idea then if Texas wants to offer him. They've kind of, in his words, they've kind of hinted, hey, an offer might come. We just want to see you in person, kind of eyeball you and see your frame and everything else. So it'll be interesting. If he comes in this weekend and gets an offer, well, then I'm dead wrong. And Texas probably will push for two quarterbacks in this class. But with KJ Lacy being what I feel pretty firm in his commitment, I don't know, you're playing a little bit of a dangerous game there. When I asked KJ, or he was asked about possibly taking a two quarterback class, he was very diplomatic about it. He said, it is what it is. I'll come in and compete. Keelon Russell's kind of the same thing. He said, I don't mind coming in as a two quarterback class. But he said, but there are other programs that are recruiting only me. And they're saying, if I come, I will be their guy. So, we'll have to see. It'll be interesting if if they still bring him in this weekend and if he shows up, if he gets an offer. That'll be a story that I'll be watching closely on Saturday.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I saw that name, I definitely wanted to ask you that. Give me a couple other names that are jumping out to you, who you're hearing may be here for the spring game.
Well, Emory Winston is the tight end commitment for Texas. He's coming in for like a 3-day visit. So, this is a guy that committed to Texas pretty early over Ohio State, and he's been pretty solid with his commitment. The fact that he's coming in for a multiple day visit, unfortunately, is going to come in under bad weather, but he's supposed to be there. Honestly, Chad, I'm going to go through this list and kind of update because a lot of these guys told me a month or so ago that they were coming. So I need to go back and kind of just circle back to some of these guys. But James Simon is a running back out of Shreveport, Louisiana. Now, everybody kind of had him pegged maybe for LSU. LSU has 2 running back commitments already. Texas has 1 in Ricky Stewart. But James Simon's coming in. Keep an eye on Texas being a sneaky player here for James Simon. Texas will probably take 2 backs. We've been hyper-focused on Jordan Davison, right? But James Simon is a guy that could wind up being in this class, I think, if Jordan Davison winds up going to Ohio State, as some people think might be the case as things stand right now. So James Simon is a guy. Michael Terry is a tremendous athlete out of the San Antonio area. He can do a little bit of everything. So, offense, defense, he's supposed to be there. Zion Williams, we've talked about, the big defensive tackle out of Lufkin. So, I mean, he's supposed to come in. Ty Haywood's a fantastic offensive line prospect. He told me, it's been about a month or better, that he was coming in. Texas kind of has their feelers more so on other offensive linemen than they do Ty Haywood. So we'll see if he comes in. His plan was to come in for the spring game. That was going to be his first visit to Texas. But, I don't know that they're prioritizing him the way some other schools are. And then you got a couple receivers like Andrew Marsh had mentioned he's coming in. Taz Williams out of Red Oak had mentioned he'll be there. We'll see if those two still have plans to come in. Riley Pettijohn, the linebacker out of McKinney. So, we're a few days out. These plans can change in a hurry. And honestly, the bad weather that's predicted for Saturday could impact some travel plans. But I still expect they'll have a pretty good group of recruits in for the spring game. They always do.
Now, wouldn't this be 2 weekends in a row for Zion Williams and Andrew Marsh? Was Marsh in last weekend?
No, Marsh wasn't in last weekend.
I'm thinking of French was last weekend. I'm sorry. I'm mixing my receivers up.
Yeah, they were in on the April 6th weekend, but Marsh was in not too long before that. He came in like on a random Monday or something and watched a practice. And Zion did come in that April 6th weekend. He was in for that weekend for an unofficial visit. So if he comes back in, and I like Texas's position with Zion. I don't remember if I have a future cast in for Texas with Zion. I'm not sure if I have ever put that in, but I do think Texas is in the driver's seat for Zion. And if he comes in again this weekend, that's a pretty telling sign, I think.
In terms of obviously the last wave that happened there on the 6th ended up being the Ricky Stewart commit. If there was a commit coming out of this weekend, is there one that jumps out to you? Is there a position maybe that you're thinking of? Maybe it's not a name. Maybe it's more of the position where you think, man, if they could get one of those coming out of the weekend, that would be a good look.
That's a really good question. And Ricky kind of caught me off guard when he committed on April 6th. And frankly, I kind of felt like an idiot. I was like, I should have been prepared for that. I knew he was probably going to wind up at Texas. I should have had a story written in the can, as they say. I don't have any pre-commitment stories written on any of these guys. If I was going to, because most of them are going to take their official visits. We're already into April. They're going to start taking visits in May and June. So most guys are going to wait, Chad, till July or August to decide. Of this group, if I was going to say, okay, there's one that's going to be a surprise and commit. Well, first off, Jackson Christian, I mentioned he might be on that list since he's a little bit unpredictable. Maybe James Simon, maybe Zion Williams, maybe one of those two. It would be a little bit of a surprise, but it wouldn't be the biggest shock in the world if they just said, you know what, I want to be done with this. Let's go ahead and just, I know where I want to go. Let's just kind of end all the charade and go ahead and do a sporadic commitment.
Quick question on, so I see Taz Williams, Andrew Marsh on the list, two receivers that I recognize the names. When you're comparing them to that group of DeCorian Moore and I lost the Saxey kid's name. Why did I lose his name?
Oh, Khalid Lockett.
Lockett, thank you. Lockett and French that were all in for that other weekend. Do you put those three guys on a whole different level than a Williams and a Marsh, or is it one big group to you?
Marsh is close to that level. Andrew Marsh is a really, really good prospect. I would put him in that same level. I mean, DeCorian's kind of in his own little world, right? He's in his own orbit, but
right.
In my opinion. But I would put Andrew Marsh in that same grouping. Taz, and I think Taz is a fantastic prospect. I've talked about it. He's one of my favorite dudes to cover. I love him as a person. But I would maybe put him in that second tier, kind of right below that. And that's, there's no shame in that, dude. Those are national type 50 type guys we're talking about in that top tier. So, but I would put Taz maybe in that second rung. But listen, Taz, and there's a reason every school in the country pretty much has offered Taz Williams. I mean, from the local schools to Ohio States and all over the country has offered Taz. So he's a fantastic prospect. But I think those other guys maybe have just a little bit more upside from a purely physical, just a physical standing.
Gotcha. I see the name Riley Pettijohn on this list as a possible guy showing up. Give me the reminder on how many times he has been to Texas. Is this where's this going to be for him in terms of number of visits?
It's a lot. I don't have. I need to pull up his profile. He was last in. I don't think he made it in on that April 6th. So he came in. I know he was at Junior Day because I remember I interviewed him at Junior Day. But it's been a lot. And I mean, Riley. If I look, bear with me while I pull up his profile. He's got about 5 schools that he's looking at. And I mean, he's kind of starting to narrow things down. And I mean, I know he's pretty open, but Florida State's in there. Obviously, Texas, Southern Cal's a school he really likes. But we've got him down for 2 visits is all. But I think it's probably been more than that. So I think the Junior Day was his last visit. But of the 5 that he's considering, there's not a school I'd certainly put above Texas. So I really like Texas's position. If they can get him back on campus this weekend, and I'll follow up with Riley. Have a more definitive answer for him, maybe for the War Room tomorrow. But he's got his official visit set for June 14th. He's a guy that's probably going to take his visits. I don't think anything crazy is going to happen this weekend, but he's got a really good relationship with the new staff and Johnny Nansen and the new Texas defensive coaches. So I think Texas is in a pretty good spot there, but they're going to have to fight because he does like some of these out-of-state schools too.
Talking a lot of recruiting here, obviously on the recruiting hour. Jason, I do want you to talk about a class of 26 guy because his name is badass, and I'm assuming he is too. But before that, I saw another name in your 3-2-1 column. Is it Aiden Anding? Is that how to say it?
Yes, out of Louisiana, and I just was texting with him yesterday. Yeah, he's a defensive back out of Louisiana, Ruston, Louisiana. But he's a guy, he's pretty open. He said, hey, man, he got that offer from Texas, came up to Texas. It was the April 6th date when they had so many guys in there, really loved the visit. And he said, hey, Texas is in his top 3. He's got Arkansas and Miami, so it would be his other one. So he's looking at 3 out-of-state schools. He's got an official visit to Miami, TCU, Arkansas, and Texas, all in the books. Texas gets him last on June 21st. So, it's going to be interesting. I mean, in the defensive backfield position, they've got a lot of guys that they're kind of recruiting still. So which ones are they going to push for? Are they going to push for Aiden Anding? Are they going to push hard for Caleb Chester, which it looks like they probably will after last weekend's visit? But, I mean, he's a guy, both these guys that I wrote about in the 3-2-1, Aiden Anding and Caleb Chester, if you said, hey, both those guys are going to wind up committing to Texas, I wouldn't argue with it. I think there's a good chance Texas will land both of them.
So, Jason, as you say, and you mentioned that Texas will get kind of the last word there on June 21st. Feels like June 21st is definitely building up to be a massive weekend. For you, how do you look at it in terms of having multiple guys come in for their official visit on a day like that on June 21st versus maybe a guy that's just by himself, whether it's a weekend, whether it's a schedule it during the week with an official visit? Like, how do you look at those two situations?
I think for official visits, for whatever reason, I think it's almost better to have a big group. Texas traditionally has, under Sarkisian, has had 2 big visit weekends in June, and they're usually on back-to-back weekends. And that's usually where the bulk of their signing class ends up coming from those 2 weekends. Guys don't really do the fall official visits as much anymore. Texas doesn't do the May official visits, or even April you can take official visits. So Texas always waits till June. And you're right, it's usually the 14th and the 21st this year. Now they've got a couple guys coming in on the 7th too, like Caleb Chester and offensive lineman out of California that's going to be in that week. But it's the 14th and the 21st. But to your point, when those guys for official visits and they're there for a full 48 hours, it's kind of good to kind of get those guys together because sometimes you can really get kind of some momentum rolling. If 1 or 2 guys commits. I'm trying to remember it was a couple of years ago when Texas just offensive linemen, boom, boom, boom. 2 years ago, I mean, all started committing within like a day of each other after their official visits, or in the case of Connor Stroh, he committed on his official visit. But I think it's good to kind of have a big group of guys and just have 2 select weekends. Some other schools spread things out a little bit. They'll do some in May, some in June, maybe some in April, but Texas chooses, let's focus on really 2 big weekends. And it's been a strategy that's worked for them pretty well so far.
Yeah, could be a lot of future teammates around. Also, chances are, if they want to meet KJ Lacy, he's probably there. I mean, he's probably ready.
He'll be in for the 21st, and it wouldn't shock me if he came in on the 14th.
I know. He's ready. You cannot say that guy is not a Pied Piper leader, quarterback commit type. He is ready to roll. KJ Lacy.
It's funny because those weekends are always so crazy hectic for me. So A, I'm working the phones. B, it's social media. Well, now it's to the point when Texas is recruiting a lot of these out-of-state guys, you have to go stalk the airport and try to interview guys before they go through security and try to catch them there. So the month of June, I always tell my wife and my kids and everybody else, I'm like, don't plan on seeing me much on the weekends because I'm going to be going 100 miles an hour every weekend. So, yeah.
All right, so we've gone over the list of guys, again, that are coming in for a visit. Obviously, check out orangebloods.com, not just for that 3-2-1 article, but as the week winds down, you're going to get a war room tomorrow night on Thursday night, and I'm sure Jason's going to be letting you know that finalized list once he hears back from the guys of who he is hearing is coming in for the visit for the spring game. And again, check out orangebloods.com for the very latest, like that report earlier today from Jeff Ketchum that Bill Norton, the DT out of Arizona, is scheduled to be a part of the group coming in. So you got big-time recruits coming in, but you also have a transfer portal guy that Texas is looking at. A big.
I'll be trying to track him down. Sorry to jump in, but I actually texted with him this morning after Ketch had already confirmed. But so hopefully, anytime a guy's responsive via text, I'm like, oh, fingers crossed. Maybe that means I'll be able to get him on the line for a post-visit interview. So we'll be trying to track that story down and, basing my intel off of what Ketch is hearing behind the scenes, I think Texas' chances look pretty good with Bill Norton.
Yeah, sounds like it. And also Texas might be able to promise him something Arizona looks like they couldn't, which is let's let the 4 and the 5 breathe. Have you seen how close those numbers were together on his jersey? Yeah. What are we doing, Arizona? Let's let it breathe. That's a big old boy there. He's 325. Like, why are you making it that big? I don't understand. All right, Jason, before we wrap up, I want to hear about Tank King. You can't put a name like Tank King in a story and have me not ask about it. So this is a kid out of Port Arthur Memorial, a 4-star inside linebacker, correct? Yeah. And this is the next class, just so we understand. We're going one class ahead to the 26th class. So he's about to be a junior in high school. Tell me about Tank.
Yeah, he's a Rivals 100 member, so he's a big-time prospect. Texas just offered him last week. And interestingly, he had the plans to come up to Austin before he got the offer. Well, so he had plans to come up for April 13th. He gets the offer. He called up it was like a support staff member. They put him on the phone with Sark, and he got the offer there. So I said, hey, I bet it's a lot better to come up here now that you had an offer. And he goes, oh, yeah, you're darn right it is. But, he said he loved he said, man, I was really just kind of soaking up the entire experience. I think he said I was really surprised and grateful for this visit. So, he really enjoyed the atmosphere. His family was with him. They seem to be having a good time. He got to, he knows Jalen Gilbo is from that area. He said, they're like family. He goes, Ty Anthony Smith, used to train with Texas freshman linebacker Ty Anthony Smith. He goes, I consider him almost like we're blood, like we're related. So he's got some really good friends inside the program. But it's pretty early for him. Like you said, he's a 2026 guy. But he said, hey, he said Texas is really up there for me. If I had a list, which he goes, I don't have a formal list, but Texas is really up there. He also likes Notre Dame. He's going to Notre Dame this weekend. He likes Texas A&M. So those are the 3 kind of early standouts for him. But Texas did make a strong impression on Tank King, certainly during that visit on Saturday.
Slipping in the old South Bend curveball. I like that. Just keep everybody on their toes. Texas A&M, and we're all nodding along, and Notre Dame. Okay.
A bit of a road trip on a random going up there for their spring game. But yeah, and we were talking, there was a couple media guys, we were talking to Tank about Texas's history of recruiting Port Arthur. And I was like, man, we've been out here. I've been out here long enough. I covered Jamal Charles back in the day from that area, so it's been a minute since I've been covering these recruits. It's a different world now than when I started. But this was before cell phones and before social media and everything else. So, but yeah, Tank King, really good player. Again, Rivals 100 member. Texas A&M. Those 2 make sense, right? And Notre Dame's in the mix as well.
Interesting. Yeah. And to whoever it is around Tank that decided that his first name is just a little, maybe get confusing for people and it doesn't sound as cool as Tank, and we're going to make the nickname the name, bravo. Well done. It's, it's a little bit of there's an apostrophe. There's a couple of different things going on in there. And it's like Tyon or something like that. It's not a bad name, but when you're an inside linebacker, Jason, and you're like you're saying a Rivals 100 level guy, there's maybe nothing cooler in football than a linebacker with the right name. Like Michael Stonebreaker played for Notre Dame back in the day, and I still remember his name because it was perfect. Tank King is a perfect name for a linebacker. So well done to whoever did that.
And when they come in for these visits, they get these big name tags that UT gives them. And usually it's their official name, right? But his said Tank King on it. So I mean, he really goes by Tank. So
and it's more. I think we're starting to see that here and there. You'll see it a little bit more and more. Scoot Henderson in basketball and some others where no. It's like that's the name. It becomes your name. It's so much of your nickname.
Kool-Aid McKinstry is. I mean, that's all.
Kool-Aid, right? That dude's name is right. That's his name. It's Kool-Aid. There it is. So Tank King, a name to keep in mind for the next class ahead in 2026. But Texas is a part of his thought process. All right, Jason, before we wrap up, anything else you wanted to mention going into the spring game in terms of recruiting?
Nope, just keep an eye on Orange Bloods. We'll have coverage leading up to that game, and I will be out there, as the Orange Bloods members like to say, stalking recruits or stocking recruits, as they like to say. So I will be at the game, camera in hand, zoom lens attached to my camera, looking like a maniac stalking recruits. So we'll have interviews from those guys, of course, after their visit. So, Chad, we say it every time I'm on with you, brother, but recruiting never ends. So we will have coverage throughout the weekend and even in the next week.
There it is. One more time, let's throw the QR code up. War Room tomorrow night on the Thursday. If you haven't checked out the 3-2-1 column from Jason, check it out. It also includes what he's looking for at the game. He's not just out there taking pictures. He is out there wanting to find out about the team. He'll tell you the key things he's looking for as well. Just check it out at orangebloods.com. Also, let's get a quick mention of our Orange Bloods event going on over at the Pitch. 6 to 9 on Friday. We'll throw it up for you. Oh, Piggy, right? Hey, what's up? 6 to 9 p.m. If I said a.m., I'm sorry. It's not a breakfast taco thing. 6 to 9 p.m. at the Pitch over there on Harris Ridge. I've never been there. Looking forward to checking it out. Come and join us. So 6 to 9 p.m. at about 7, we will do a Q&A, and it's basically going to be like a live modcast that all of us are going to check out because the 4 modcast guys are scheduled to appear. And if we can just get those 4 up there yakking at each other, the rest of us will have a good time lobbing questions at them. So come on out, ask them whatever you want. If there's a question you've always wanted to ask Jason Sukamel, other than something about the Yankees, let's not get him talking about the Yankees at the event. I don't think we need to do that. That's probably not good.
Buy me a beer, and I will answer any question you want. People.
There you go. He'll give you Aaron Judge's batting average for the last 5 years straight. No problem. But we're going to have a good time out there on Friday evening. So 6 to 9, come see us. Shout out to the Pitch for being one of our great new partners around here. And shout out to all of you for liking, subscribing, and getting your notifications to Orange Bloods Live. We're over 400 folks as we get ready to close the door. We thank you for that. Everybody have a great Wednesday. If you want a little more, how about an Outsiders discussion tonight at 8:30? Chance Mock's always with us. He's recruited in one of his quarterback friends, Adam Dunn, to talk about spring games and quarterbacks. How much of it is real and how much of it is scripted to look a certain way? Well, they're going to dig into it tonight. Who would know better than these two? And if you missed Adam Dunn the first time on The Outsiders, it's quite a ride. It's quite a ride. Maybe your small children shouldn't watch The Outsiders tonight. That's all I'm saying. Adam Dunn likes to talk and likes to swear a bit. 8:30 tonight on The Outsiders. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you for supporting us. Everybody have a great rest of your Wednesday. Until Monday at 4 for your next recruiting hour. I just realized I put the wrong thing up. I put House Divided up. Why did I do? There it is. Until next Monday at 4, when the recruiting hour will happen, and hopefully the right graphic will be there. For Jeff Ketchum, who's getting the work done. For Jason Sukamel, I'm Chad Hastings. We are Orange Bloods Live.